This is lesson 3 out of Moses' life, and there could be, I don't know, 30 lessons, but Ben told me I could only have 3. So I'm going to skip a lot of cool stuff in Moses' life and kind of skip towards the end of Moses' life. We're going to skip over all the plagues and crossing the Red Sea and all those things, and they're all great, and there are lots of lessons in there. But I wanted particularly to pick up this verse out of Numbers chapter 12 and verse 3. And I know lots of you have read Numbers. You just keep going back and back to it, reading it over and over again because it's such a delightful book of the Bible, right? Yeah, most of us have not spent a lot of time in Numbers. If we read through the Bible, that's where we get it. But we try to get out of there. That and Deuteronomy, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, we try to get through those as fast as we can, probably. But it says this in Numbers 12, verse 3, Moses was a very humble man, more so than anyone on the face of the earth. That is an interesting sentence, right? Moses was a very humble man. Humility is something we all recognize as a virtue, but how do we get it? Think about what Moses went through. I just mentioned some of them. He delivered all these plagues. He stood and defied Pharaoh, stood up to him and represented God to Pharaoh. And then he led the people across the Red Sea. He's the one who held his staff up. We know that God did that, but Moses was the point man there. Everybody looked to him. They were complaining about him before. He did all these things through the desert where he provides for the people, again, at God's discretion. The manna, he delivers the message. The water from the rock a couple of times he gets for them. He is their leader. He judges all their disputes, all these things. And then it says that Moses was a humble man, more so than anyone on the face of the earth. And I want you to understand something. It's something that happened late. This is not the story of Exodus 3. We talked about that last time, where he is called by God, but then makes all these excuses. That's not humility exactly. I might say, borrowing from one of my favorite writers, C.S. Lewis, that in Exodus chapter 3, Moses is thinking less of himself. He's thinking of himself less than he ought, probably, or certainly thinking less of God than he ought. Humility is slightly different. Humility, again, in the words of C.S. Lewis, is not thinking less of yourself. It is thinking of yourself less. Moses was not humble because he made all those excuses of why God couldn't use him. Moses was humble because he never used his authority to lord it over people. He always looked to God and yielded to other people, as in this story in Numbers 12. He yielded to other people who were criticizing him, and he let God stand up for him. It's a critical difference that humility is thinking of ourselves less, not thinking less of ourselves. Here's what I mean. When we think about how to become humble, you can't get humility by thinking about it, right? It defeats the purpose. You're thinking about yourself, and humility is the opposite of that. Here's how you get humility, not by thinking about it and working on it. You get humility by thinking of others. You can only think of yourself less as you think of others more. And there's a practical way to think of others more. Serve others. Do something for someone else. Now, you'll note pretty quickly that this is a good spiral, right? As we think of others, we think of ways we can serve them. And as we serve them, we think more of others. We get in the habit of thinking others, and one drives the other. And in that way, we can increase our humility and be more like Christ, right? That's what Philippians 2 says Jesus is like, is that he is humble, that we should have the same attitude of Christ. Christ thought of us so much that he stepped out of heaven to come to us. As I was just talking with somebody else today, he condescended to come to us, came down to us. Christ thought about us so much that he was willing to step away from glory to save us. And so if we're going to be like him, we need to think of others more than ourselves, love others more than ourselves. As ourselves is the way Jesus puts it. The only way I've ever gotten close to that is by putting others above myself, putting others' needs above my own. So I just want to ask at the end of this lesson on humility and from Moses' life, who do you need to serve? Right? It's almost always a who, not what. Who do you need to serve? I hope you'll let us help at Union Hill. We want to be a body, a family that serves one another and serves our community. I'd love for you to let us help you find who God wants you to serve and how you can do that. Reach out to us. at the office or on social media, any way you can. We'd love to hear from you. We'll see you next time.